episode of the Posecast, sponsored by basketballnews.com. We have Fox Sports analyst, co-host of The Odd Couple on radio and podcast with Rob Parker, and Cleveland finest, I will put that in there, Chris Broussard, man. What's up? How you doing?
What's up, Pose, man? It's great to be on with you.
Man, thank you for taking the time out. You know, sort of roles are reversed right now, but you know, I appreciate you taking the time out, though.
Hey, I don't know how many people know, but I covered you in high school. I remember, I think you were a sophomore when I first heard about you at Twinsburg High School outside of Cleveland. And you're right, the roles are reversed. I did a big feature story on you one year, and I was saying earlier to you, I remember, I don't know if we were in the high school library or cafeteria, but somewhere I remember sitting down.
The cafeteria.
So I followed you. You know, I remember then you went to Xavier, which was great. And I remember going to one of your games. You might not even remember this. I think it was, I think y'all were playing Akron maybe. But I remember talking to you and telling you, yo, after the game, you know, you got a great shot to make it to the league. Just keep doing what you're doing. And obviously you had a great career, man. So it's great to be here with you, see all your success, and welcome to the media.
Thank you, man. I appreciate all that. You was born and raised in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and then you worked your way up to Cleveland, went to Holy Name. Tell us how that transition was there, and tell me a little bit about growing up in Cleveland.
Man, for me, I mean, I actually moved around a lot as a kid. So I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but my father, his job, he wasn't in the military, but he got transferred all the time. And so I moved from Baton Rouge when I was a baby. So I lived in Cincinnati for about 7 years.
Natty.
Yeah, then I lived in Indianapolis, Indiana for like 4 years. Then Syracuse, New York for a year and a half. Then, believe it or not, Des Moines, Iowa for 2.5 years. And then I moved to Cleveland like the last quarter of my junior year of high school. And then I went to Oberlin College, which was, you know, near Cleveland. And my first job was at the Cleveland Plain Dealer. So Ohio is really home. You know, that's where I lived more than any place growing up. But, you know, moving around, there were pros and cons, you know, as you can imagine. That first day of school is always a trip when you go to a new place, you know, you don't know anybody. But it taught me that you can get along it taught me how to get along with different types of people. And it taught me also that you could be happy anywhere. Like I had favorite places. Like I loved Cincinnati. I loved Indianapolis. But I was genuinely happy everywhere. Like I made friends, and, you know, and it also made my family closer, because when you first move, that's all you have is each other, you know. So so it was some benefits to moving around. But Cleveland, like I said, finished high school there, played at Holy Name, and that's you know, my parents still live there, so that's home in a lot of ways.
Right. So you played basketball and you played a little bit of football too. What was your game like in basketball, if you could compare it to today's player? And then football, what position did you play and where did you fit in out there?
Well, football was actually my favorite sport. Like growing up, and you know, Ohio is a football state. My dream was to be like the next great tailback at USC. That was back when, you know, O.J. Simpson, then Charles White, Anthony Davis. They had a bunch of great tailbacks back then. And I was a running back early on, but then like my sophomore year in high school, I was kind of small, so they moved me to receiver. And so my senior year, we made the state playoffs, which is big. You know, we won our division, the North Coast Conference. And we made the state playoffs. You remember Benedictine? I know you know Benedictine. They beat us. They beat us in the regular season, and then they beat us in the playoffs. But they had Larry Wonky, who ended up going to Pitt and playing there. And then he ended up he was drafted. I don't know if he spent any time in the NFL, but so they beat us. But I was a receiver. Had some touchdowns that year. I had a good year. You know, I actually played most of that year with a hip pointer, but still was playing through it. You know, I played hurt, so
Okay.
but it was I had a pretty good season there. And then basketball, I was a point guard, and I was there in '86 at Holy Name. So we got to the district final, which was the furthest that Holy Name had ever been since like 1972. And that's when they just had, you know, we were the big schools. It was A, AA, AAA. We were in AAA. And so you know, I had a really good season, played in the city, made all conference play. You probably, I don't know if you were considered Cleveland or Akron, because Twinsburg was kind of in between, but we played, you know how they had that city all-star game for the best seniors in the area.
Yep.
I played in that. And so that was you know, obviously an achievement. And did you play? Because I know if you were considered Cleveland, I know you would have played in that.
Yeah, we did that. So that's why I said it was, you know, because we're Division II. So, you know what I'm saying? You still had the Cleveland side of things. So when it came to like you say the playing deal, the post and picking the teams, everything was Cleveland related for the most part, but we're just on the outer skirts of things right there.
You know, I tell you this, and you could probably relate to this, because when I was covering the Akron area high schools and covered you guys, it was always a challenge to pick the all like area teams, because you would have guys, you know how it was. You had these small schools, like Revere and, you know, not the real small ones, but, you know, you had those suburban schools where guys would average like 30 points a game or 25 points a game, but they were going to play D3. And then you had some guys that were playing D1, mid-major or D1, but their numbers weren't as big, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you knew they were better, but the numbers of these other guys were like up through the roof, you know?
Right.
And so it was always interesting with that. But yeah, so that was my basketball. And then I played in college, Division III. They recruited me for football and basketball. And so I played basketball, but yeah, I played.
You were Steph Curry before anybody ever knew, huh? Like shooting the trade ball.
Shoot, I wish, man. You know, hey, real talk. When this will make you laugh. When I played in high school, they didn't even have a 3-point line.
What? Oh, stop playing.
Stop playing. I'm aging myself like crazy, man.
Stop playing.
We had it in college. But we didn't have it in high school.
Man, so you getting buckets straight mid-range.
It was mid-range for real, man. I even in college, when we had the three, I didn't shoot a lot of threes. I mean, you know, back then it was the late 80s. It just wasn't a big deal, you know?
Right. It was either like dunks, layups, or mid-range jump shots.
Right.
Yeah, so the threes didn't come in. But look, with all that said, I mean, you in the school's Hall of Fame. How did that feel? You know what I'm saying?
Man,
I mean,
you know, that was great. Yeah, that was awesome. And it was about 4 or 5 years ago when they inducted me. It's a real achievement and accomplishment, you know, so it felt great, you know.
Right. All right, from Holy Name, you make it, like you said, you go to Oberlin College. Why Oberlin College? Was it because you were able to play both sports there, or you just felt comfortable enough to go to Oberlin? Did you have any other options?
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I was being recruited for football and basketball by Division III schools. So it was smaller schools around, you know, the Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, just that whole region. And so most of the schools I was visiting, Baldwin Wallace, Case Western Reserve, some other schools, I'm just gonna keep it real. Most of them were like lily white, like hardly any African Americans. And actually the ones I mentioned, Baldwin Wallace, Case Western Reserve, they had some blacks, but a lot of other schools, Washington and Jefferson, just a host of schools I went to visit, didn't really have many African Americans. And I wanted to go to a school that had a strong black population. So when I went to visit Oberlin, first it's funny because the coach called me and I wasn't home. He talked to my dad. And so I get home, my father tells me, yeah, Oberlin called, and their coach, he said, "You got any interest in Oberlin?" I was like, "Nah, I'm not really, really interested in Oberlin. I never even heard of it, And he was like, "Well, the coach was a brother, so you might want to check it out, black, black." And so, so I was like, I'll go visit. So, man, I go visit, and the team, and this is unusual for Division III, the team was virtually all black. I mean, they had a few white guys, but it was virtually all black. You have black players in Division III, obviously, but it's not many teams that are mostly or basically all black.
Right.
And then Oberlin, I don't know if you know this, but it's got a great history with African Americans. So it was the first school in the country that was I don't even know if they had HBCUs when it was founded, but Oberlin was the first school in the country to admit African Americans.
Wow.
And so in the early 1900s, 2/3 of all black college graduates had gone to Oberlin. Wow. And so, and Oberlin was a stop on the Underground Railroad. I don't know if y'all ever played them, but they were, man, their time. Y'all never played Oberlin?
No, we never played them.
Their high school team was nasty. They won state in '86. They were smart. They were I think Division II too, but they won state in '86, my year. And I mean, we used to go to their game. I mean, they sent a lot of dudes to D1. But they were nice. So it had a lot of blacks in the town, but the school had a lot of African Americans. And it also had, unlike most schools recruiting me, it had students from all over this country and even all over the world, because it's such a good school. And so that was all unique. So I was like, man, I can go here and have a great time socially and then play ball. And so it worked out, man. And so that's really why I chose it.
So at what point did you say, living the hoop dream and the football dream, now it's a change of course, and now you get into the sports writing thing? What moment was that for you when you was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a liking to it and see where it takes me, and then eventually fall in love with it? How did that all happen for you?
Yeah, it's funny, man, because I mean, look, like I said, I was a Division III player, and even coming out of high school, I was a local star, but I wasn't, a national type star. So I mean, I knew really realistically I had no shot at playing, past college. But you young, you got your dreams, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
of course.
Daydreaming, maybe, have a great career. Because there was a few D3 guys that would get drafted. You might remember Greg Grant, little 5'7" guard. Yep. Yeah, he played D3. Yep. One of the guys from Oberlin actually, back in a few years before I got there, got a tryout with the Cavs. He got drafted in the late. This is when they had more than 2 rounds. So I had those dreams, but then, quickly I realized after pretty quick that I wasn't going to the NBA. So honestly, man, what happened with me was my sophomore year, I looked around at my friends and my teammates, and it was looking around at mostly African-American students too, who were my friends and stuff. And they all had plans. Like they all knew, I'm going to be an engineer, or I'm going to go to law school after, college. I'm going, the girl I ended up marrying, I met my wife there. She knew she was going to medical school. I had teammates going to public policy school. They all just knew what they were doing after Oberlin. And I didn't have a clue, man. I started, believe it or not, I started off as an economics major because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I figured, let me try business, right? My dad is in business. Let me try business. And then I took introduction to economics, and that ended my econ career. It just wasn't for me, man. It was, I passed it. I got like a C or C minus, but I was done with it. And so what I did, looking around, seeing everybody, I was like, man, I got 2.5 years before I'm out in the real world, and I have to, be responsible and take care of myself and be an adult. And I got scared, man. So I came up with a formula. And I said, let me look at something I enjoy plus something that I'm gifted at. Because I was like, I want a career that I can enjoy and obviously something I do well. So I obviously always loved sports. And then I was a gifted writer. So that was just a gift. I was always able to write. And so I said, let me try to become a sports writer. So then I wrote a little bit on the newspaper, school newspaper, and was fortunate to get an internship the summer after my junior year at the Plain Dealer. And that's really where I did well that summer. And that's really where my whole career started.
So who were you? Was it anyone that you looked up to that you saw like, man, like this person makes this more interesting than I really thought it would? Or, you know, for us, like basketball players, it's somebody, a player that you look up to, like, right. Okay, I like his game and man, I want to be that type of player. Was it somebody for you that you saw like, I sort of like how
just growing up, you know, I loved like Brent Musburger, you know, and his heyday was probably, you were really young, but he was really the man for a while. And then some of the other broadcasters I just liked, you know, growing up, obviously Howard Cosell. And then seeing black ones like a Fred Hickman. I don't know if you remember Fred Hickman, but he was back in the day, and he was really good. So those are guys that inspired me. And then you might remember a writer named Elton Alexander at the Plain Dealer. He covered the MAC. But when I first got to the Plain Dealer, they had him kind of mentor me and take me around. And so he showed me the ropes. He was African-American. And so he really helped me out a lot. But, you know, it wasn't like today where you had ESPN, but it was not nearly as popular, you know. And it just wasn't like today where you didn't have the internet. So you weren't seeing the national guys like you are today.
Right. So you did work with the Cleveland Plain Dealer, also the Akron Beacon Journal, and then the New York Times. Now, Cleveland, Akron, small market, but the New York Times, to be able to do work for them, how did that make you feel, and how did that happen for you? You know, you like you said, you started in Cleveland, now you end up doing work for the New York Times. Right. How was that for you?
Yeah, that was you know, it was when I was in Akron, the Beacon Journal, that's when I started covering the Cavs. And so I covered during, you know, what I call like the Bobby Fields, Chris Mills, Terrell Brandon era. You know,
okay, yeah,
Mike Patella was the coach.
Yeah.
And so what bigger papers would look, they always looking for talent. And so the New York Times contacted me, you know, and like, hey, we like the stuff you do with, you know, covering the Cavs, and we're interested in hiring you. And so they came after me. So then I did go there and start out covering the Nets. And it's just a whole, as you know, man, New York was a different animal. That's why they'll start people off on the Nets beat, because it's not quite as big as the Knicks. You know, it's not as important to people and all that. So I start off on the Nets beat when they had Keith Van Horn and Sam Cassell, and then eventually got Stephon Marbury and guys like that. And then went to the Knicks. But it was it's, you know, it's the same type of work, but it was just so much more competitive and cutthroat, to be honest, you know.
Right.
And so you had to adjust to that. But I did it, adjusted to it, and you know, did a good job.
So when you say, like, when you look at athletes, you say skill sets, shooter, you know, guards, or a postman with great post moves. How is that skill set found in your profession? Like, how is that actually found?
That's a good question. I think I always tell people, like, you have guys who are really good writers who, you know, their stories are tremendously well written. But then they don't really like reporting, like digging, you know, for information, or even, you know, they don't get the most, like if they sat down with an interview for you, they might not get the most out of you. You know, they could write it in a way that's really, you know, great, but they don't get the most out of you as far as the interview. Then there are guys that are really good interviewers, but don't write that well. And I can, me and some of the other dudes that I like writers, really some of the other black writers, we would kind of compare writing to like MCs, you know. So like you got a Rakim or I'll say, I don't know, a Nas or, you know, some guys who are really wordsmiths, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then you got like a 50 Cent who wasn't like a great lyricist, but he made good songs, you know what I mean? And so there's a difference. So we would always like compare our stuff like as rhymers, you know, and I want to be like a Nas or something, you know, where my stuff like Biggie, just great wordplay and really well written, you know? So what I say is you want to try to be both. You want to try to be a combination of a great writer and a great reporter, you know? And reporting, man, it's an art, not a science. I mean, how you develop sources, it's just relationships, you know? It's like if you get cool with a player or a coach or somebody in the front office and they take a liking to you and you can get information, you know, they share information with you and stuff like that. So it's kind of, it's real, like I said, it's an art, not a hardcore science, you know? So that's really how all that developed. And it's a lot different now too, just because, like I said, we didn't have the internet,
the social media.
when I was covering the teams, and you know, you weren't texting like it back in the day, man. I mean, if you got a GM or two on the phone, that's a lot in a day. Now you can just text with guys all the time, you know. So that's why you see a lot more stories are broken today than used to be, because the communication is so constant.
So as far as your sources, right? Do you have to answer to somebody and say, you know what, I got a credible source so I can put this out, or how does that go? And then also being able to break that first story, you know, who's in charge of that? Is it you, or is it somebody else that's giving you the nod? Okay, we're gonna run with it, Chris.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's changed over time, because it used to be like, especially at the New York Times, like we rarely used anonymous sources. And for you to use an anonymous source,
I hate that.
Man, look, it's changed so much, Pose. Like when we used to have to it used to have to be a huge story for you to use an anonymous source, and you'd have to talk with your editor about it. And, you know, okay, you sure about this? And you know what I mean? That type of thing. Now, and then it just kind of gradually changed to more and more anonymous sources being used. And it got to a point, I mean, you know this, you rarely see people talk on the record now. You know what I mean? About anything.
Right, yeah.
Other than like a feature or a game story.
Right.
And it got to a point, even for me, like at ESPN, my last several years there, I mean, I wouldn't even really, it was just kind of understood. And really to this day too, when I talk to scouts or executives or coaches, it's just understood that it's off the record, you know, because, and there's a legitimacy to it. It goes both ways, but you know, people like, and I get it. A GM can't say, yeah, we're looking to trade, you know what I mean? So-and-so.
Right.
You can't say that on the record, you know? And so it has to be off the record to get the truth out, you know? And so I get it. And there's a lot of different types of sources. Obviously, I mentioned, you know, front office, coaches, players, but then also people around the team, you know, friends of players. Because you know this, like if I've broken stories where there was an argument or a fight at practice or, you know, whatever. And the players, like if they're, you know this probably, if there's a fight in practice, the coach is going to be like, yo, don't say anything to the media.
Don't say nothing. Right. Exactly.
Right. So who you going to tell though? You'll tell your boys. And so if you are cool with a player's boys, you can get information like that. You know what I mean? So, but it's, you know, and I get that too, Pose, because you know this, like and this probably comes from me having played at least to the college level. If you say you had a fight with a teammate in practice, and it might have been just heat of the moment, y'all actually are cool, but you know, it got heated, but it ain't no big deal after that. If I write that James Posey and LeBron James had a fight, it'll become a huge, you know what I mean?
James Posey is gone. You better believe that. Hey, by the time I leave the
traded,
building,
right?
I'm already packing my bag.
Right. And the thing is, it may not have even been a bit, because I almost had fights with guys at college, and later that night we chilling in the bar, you know what I mean? Like, it ain't no big deal. But when you put a headline on it, and then today it would get on TV, social media, it becomes like much bigger than it may have even been. So I get why coaches don't want that type of stuff out.
Right. So is it like a race to have breaking news or be the first to do it amongst your competitors or something like that? Is it a race for that or not?
Yeah, it is competitive. You know, the writers compete. And now Twitter's changed everything. You know, when I was
Twitter fingers.
When I was covering teams, man, like, you know, think about it. The newspaper comes out every morning. So if I got a scoop right now at this time in the afternoon, I would wait. I would write it, but it wouldn't come out until the next morning. And so you're just hoping that the other newspapers don't get it, you know?
Right.
And then you would find out in the morning if they knew. But nowadays stuff is broken immediately. And I used to always feel too, like, when you break a story, you got to tell why it's happening, what's behind it and all that. But now it's really just transactions. You just type out so-and-so's being traded, you know, and a lot of that comes from agents. You know, and it's interesting with Twitter, because a lot of times an agent will call, so he might call one writer and then 15 seconds, 30 seconds later call another one. And then, you know, because he's got relationships with the various writers. And so that's a part, I tell you, I don't miss, because I never really I didn't really enjoy that part, because it's stressful and it's so, you know, I enjoyed more covering the game, writing stories about the players, telling stuff like that. Right. But that summer, when the big three came together in Miami, you know, I was breaking a lot of that stuff. And then I kind of got in that mold. And I really didn't want to be in that mold, but I went there. And so I don't miss not having to do that. Because, like, for instance, this summer, when I don't even know trying to think of who the big free agents are, but I won't have to chase where so-and-so is, where Blake Griffin's signing at. Just whenever he signs, I'll be able to just give my opinion about it and analyze it and stuff like that. So that's a lot less stressful.
Well, I got you, man. That sounds like it. So you brought it up, the breaking of LeBron and the Miami thing. How was that? And how did that make you feel? Like, he was like, yeah, like, you know, covering, you know what I'm saying, that Cleveland area, LeBron James, best high school player coming out, and, you know, his career, and now this big moment for him and changing teams. Like, how was that for you?
Well, that, man, going into that summer, obviously we all knew it was going to be a huge summer. I was like, this is the biggest story maybe of the decade, you know, like of the century, since it was in the 2000s. And I was like, I'm just going to work around the clock to try to break as much of it as I can. And so so for like 2 or 3 weeks, right before he announced, I was working around the clock. And I would be at ESPN, no lie, maybe from 6:15 in the morning, because I do Mike and Mike in the morning, and then stay. There were days I was there till 1 o'clock in the morning, because I do all the various sports centers, and I would just stay there and work the phones when I wasn't on TV and writing stuff. And even when you go to your hotel, you know, it's 24/7 now. And so I just worked my tail off for those 3 weeks because I knew I was like, this is the big story and this could be huge for me. And so it did help. You know, it got me on the NBA Countdown show with Magic Johnson for that year and John Barry and Mike Wilbon. So it really did help my career. I was, you know, I knew LeBron. I did a lot of stories on LeBron when he was in Cleveland his first go round. So I knew him pretty well. And it was, you know, I was one of the few Pose that didn't kill him when he made that move. And you remember he was getting destroyed by everybody.
Right. Everybody.
And I looked at it like this, and I said this on the air. I said, hold up. We always rip players and we say all they want is the money, right? They don't care about winning. I said, this guy took less money and was willing to take much less, you know, to go to Miami to win. So number one, we shouldn't rip him for that. That's being hypocritical. I said, number two, we always talk about their ego. Oh, he just wants to be the man. He don't care about winning. I said, LeBron was giving up being the man, being the king to be one of, what were they saying? 3 kings, right? So he was giving up ego to win. Like all the things we say we want in the athletes, care about winning, care about team, don't be selfish. He was showing. And I was like, so we should, you know, I think it's hypocritical to kill him for that. And then, so when Durant went to Golden State, same thing. A lot of guys were killing him. I was actually going at it with Stephen A on SportsCenter about it. And I said this, I said, look, all y'all killing him now, but when he, in 2 or 3 years, when he's got 2 championships and at least 1 finals MVP, you're going to be praising him. Right. Because I saw with LeBron, all them people that killed him, when he won it, oh, he's the greatest. He's this, he's that.
Right.
And I said, that's hypocritical. If you don't think it, you know, if you think he cheated or whatever because the team was so stacked, then don't praise him when he wins, you know? And I said, so with Durant, I was like, I'm not killing him because I know y'all going to be praising him when he wins and he's going to win and it'll look hypocritical, you know? And so, and the thing, Pose, they were, LeBron, you know this, he had tried to get guys to go to Cleveland. Like he was trying to get Bosh to go there and he couldn't. And he's looking at, okay, the Celtics got this bunch of stars, you know, and even history, he's a history, you know, he knows the history of the game. If you look at most of these teams, the Celtics with Bird, the Lakers with Showtime, like they were stacked. And so he was like, if the Cavs can't get me another star or 2, then I'm going to have to build it myself. And that's what he's done. And now that's what we see being done, you know, all the time now.
All the time now. So it's interesting. So, you know, going back, you covered Brown first, you know, in Cleveland. Just think about the team that he put together now, like his power team, you know what I'm saying, with Rich Paul, Mav, and Randy, those guys. You've seen that. I mean, you have firsthand experience of that. What was that like then? And did you think, how did you, you know, when you heard the Posey comment, you know what I'm saying, but you were there firsthand to see it develop. How was that movement for LeBron James and his power team there?
Man, yeah, I was around LeBron and Maverick Carter, Rich Paul, and Randy Mims, like early in his first couple years in the league. And to see, man, I actually think LeBron has laid a blueprint for what a lot of athletes should be doing. And you notice, like in the 90s, it was popular for guys, you know, what they call entourages, you know, and a guy would have his entourage and his boys hanging out with him. And your boys are your boys, so they don't mean to do this. But a lot of times they use up a lot of your money. You know, I've heard stories about players who would fly their boys to various cities with them, you know, when they traveling, staying in the hotel, or come to their city, stay in a big time hotel for weeks.
Living their life with them like they the player.
Right. And so, and they don't mean it necessarily, but they're using up a ton of your money, you know? And so LeBron, like I said, I would love for more players, particularly African Americans, to follow his blueprint, because he had his guys and he put them in position to become, moguls in their own right. So when LeBron retires, Rich Paul's still gonna be the man. Maverick Carter is still gonna have Spring Hill Entertainment, and that's what we need to do as African Americans. We talk about the old boy network. That's what happens, among white Americans. They know each other, or they got connections, they got contacts, so they help people get in positions. We have to do that, and that's what LeBron's done. And so rather than you can bring your boys with you as he's done, but put them in position to become successful in their own right. And even if everybody can't do what Maverick does, everybody can't do what Rich does.
Right.
But you could say to your boy, look, I'll send you to college. Real talk, you got 6 years to graduate. And when you come out, you can work for me, or you can become my business manager or whatever, but you can empower. I think, brothers, instead of just having your boys hang around you and even unknowingly or not purposely eating up a lot of your money, put them in positions to be empowered, even if it's getting them a job with the team or with a shoe company or some connections that you have. Because ultimately they're going to want to stand on their own 2 feet anyway, as a man. And so I love what LeBron's done, man. You couldn't ask him to do more. And I say this, he said early in his career, he wanted to be a global icon like Ali, and he would bring up Muhammad Ali. And obviously Ali kind of is on this pedestal by himself for the time period he was in and speaking out loud. And so I don't put LeBron necessarily on that, but I will say this. In terms of tangible things, LeBron has done more. Than I starting the school, putting his guys in, starting his media company, production company, Clutch Sports, all the things he's done, in addition to speaking out, he's done more tangible things than not only Ali, but a lot of people. And so it's just great to see what he's done. And, being from that area, it's awesome to see that.
Right. Question. Coming from that area, I'm sure you interviewed plenty of players then in their high school days and even probably going on to college. Any players stick out where you thought hey, this kid really had a chance. He's going to be able to go to college, have a great career there, and then also go professionally, and didn't make it?
Well, it's interesting because you're one of the two that I can think of. I don't know. I think you and Earl Boykins are the two guys that I covered that went pro. And you remember, if you saw Earl, I'm sure you saw him playing high school.
Yeah, he busted up. He gave us 45.
Did y'all?
My junior year, man. Oh man.
I know you was like, how is this dude doing this, man?
Listen, going into it, like, man, we gonna trap this little dude, man. He ain't gonna do nothing. Listen, man, Earl gave us 45, man. He laughing at us while doing it. He coming across half court, shooting, right across half court, shooting. You know what I'm saying? Another tray balls. We couldn't trap him. He gave us buckets and they beat us, of course. But yeah, Earl.
Earl was, man, it was amazing. And if you saw him in college and in the pros, he played the same exact way that he played in high school, and so, and it's funny, every time, I know he was laughing at y'all, because every time I see him before a game, he would be like, watch me put 40 on these boys, or watch me put 30 on these boys, all the way up to the NBA. He was so y'all two, and Ruben was around, Ruben Patterson. He was around y'all time, right? Yep. I didn't really cover him, but y'all two, and I cover Antoine Winfield and Mike Vrabel that made it to the NFL. But as far as guys that I thought had a shot, because that's a good, it's bigger in football, but it's a good basketball area too. You remember Quentin Brooks from Firestone?
Yeah.
He was the big, he was the best player in the area that one year. He went to Michigan State. And I think he ended up playing overseas.
Yeah, remember Malcolm Sims?
Yeah, from Shaker Heights, right?
Yeah, I was at Shaker first, man. We was looking at Malcolm like, man, like we just knew he was going, you know. So he was the man, smooth game. And then I think he ended up just going to Cleveland State, and then I'm not sure what happened after that. But Malcolm Sims, hell yeah, that Shaker.
He was bad.
Killing.
Didn't he start? I think he started at Indiana, and then might have ended up transferring to Cleveland State or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah.
Who else was around was when he played football, he ended up being a linebacker for the Redskins. Link, what's his name? Little dude. He played in
London Fletcher.
London Fletcher. Yeah, he was a point. Did y'all play them?
No, Village St. Joe when he was at St. Joe's, right? Yeah.
He was a point guard.
Right.
And he was good.
Solid, swole.
Yeah.
Had a vertical. He was shooting at the top of the man. He was nice too. London Fletcher. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. It was some it was some great ballers, man. But I actually think it seems like the area has gotten even better in basketball now. Okay. And some of that's probably LeBron and even y'all making it to the NBA. But I think that area, like I said, Ohio was always a football state, and it still is. But I think there's a lot more big time basketball players coming out of there now, you know. But I think those are y'all the two, you and Earl, man, the two that I remember covering in high school. Yeah, that went on.
Right.
So
appreciate that. So, question: what's been the best, the worst, and the most epic interviews or stories that you covered that it just made you like sit back like, man, I can't even believe it was a waste of time or it wasn't.
Right. My best experience probably as in sports writing was when I went to Africa. And this was in like 2005 and 2006. So if you remember, that's when America was losing in international competition. Mm-hmm. So was it 2004 when they lost in the Olympics with LeBron and Carmelo and all those guys they weren't playing a lot, but they lost. And then we lost in a few of the, off-year tournaments and all that.
Right.
So we did a big story on ESPN the magazine on how they're developing players around the world. So we sent like Rick Bucher, I think, went to Asia. We sent somebody to South America, somebody to Europe, somebody stayed in America. And then I went to Africa and we were doing how they're developing different players. And so I went to Senegal, which was the first basketball academy in Africa. And just, as an African-American, man, being there, I was there all told for three to 4 weeks. And I went twice for like 2 weeks each. And as African-American going there, it was a great experience because we stayed in the city, Dakar, and, you just got a real feel for the people. And, it was just from a cultural standpoint, it was great. And that's actually where I met Masai Ujiri, who was at that point, he was a scout. I don't know if it was for the Nuggets or who, I can't remember what team, maybe Washington, but he was a scout. Lance Blanks was over there who ended up working with the Cavs. He may have been with the Cavs. I don't know if he was with the Cavs at that time, but a lot of guys over there and a lot of, great players and athletes over there. So it was just that was my greatest experience just from a cultural standpoint, Right. And so as far as tough situations, kind of like you said, I'll go back to the Kawhi, like when he went to the Clippers and I had tweeted or been saying he was going to go to the Lakers. And I wasn't really trying to be a reporter because I was out of that space, but I was just tweeting what I'm hearing, But, now if you say anything, it's a report. You might just say it as you hearing this or your own opinion, but it's put out there like it's a report. So anyway, I was saying Kawhi, and I was talking to a lot of people too that were saying Kawhi was going to the Lakers. And I still do believe, had he not been able to get Paul George there, that he was going to the Lakers, you know? And I know I've been told, like Doc Rivers thought that afternoon, that Friday afternoon when it happened, that he thought Kawhi was going to the Lakers. And then that deal, the trade came through, and then Kawhi went to the Clippers. So, but when he went to the Clippers, and I had been out front saying Lakers, I got ripped, you know, and it's like being a player, you got to have tough skin, you know what I mean? Right. And so that was one of the tougher things.
So, I mean, you might have touched on a little bit. So what are the sort of some do's and some don'ts in your profession where you could just, I mean, have your privileges revoked and people not mess with you, you know what I'm saying?
Well, as far as a don't, never burn your sources. So like never, you know, if you work, whether it's a player or a front office person or whatever, if they're giving you information, never reveal who they are, you know, their names. Because if you, I mean, one, it's just ethically wrong. You know, you got a kind of an understanding with this person. But also, if you put somebody's name out there, oh, they talk to other people around the league, you know, other players. So they could be like, yo, don't mess with him because he burned, you know what I mean? Don't tell me he burned me like this. So that's really a big don't. And then generally, and it's hard nowadays because like you said, it's so much who wants to be first, but you rather be right than first. You know, and the times that I've gotten into trouble, or not trouble, but you know, times I got a story wrong is when I was thinking more about being first than being, you know, making sure dotting all my I's and crossing my T's first. So those are really two things to avoid.
Got you. Yeah. Lock that in right here. I'm gonna lock that in right here.
you gonna start breaking stories, huh?
Yeah, hey, I'm working it one day, maybe one day. So who's your competition?
Well, now, you know, I don't really, you know, now I'm an opinionist and an analyst. So I don't really, it's not really not competing with anybody in that regard. Obviously, you know, you on the show and you debating with Skip and Shannon and Nick Wright and Rob Park on the radio show. But that's just in fun and debating. It's not really competition to break stories. But when I was at ESPN, obviously Woj was the big competition at Yahoo. And I was not really, because when I first went to ESPN, I was a magazine writer, you know, so I was doing feature stories and I wasn't really, I even told him I'm not coming here to break news and be that, getting that daily grind, because I could have stayed at the New York Times for that. And I was but like I said, that summer of 2010, when LeBron went to Miami, I did say, you know what, I'm going to try to break these stories when I can. So I really focused on that. And then ESPN started viewing me like, oh, he can be our Adam Schefter of the NBA. And I never really wanted to be that. You know, I was enjoying the features and TV and all that. So I kind of half did it, you know, but Mark Stein was there. He was my colleague at ESPN, great reporter. And he and Woj they were real in competition. So then I would help Mark and try to help ESPN get the stories. But Woj was really the biggest comp, like, because Woj obviously breaking a ton of stuff. And, you know, and I met Woj, gosh, the late 90s covering the Nets. And he was a columnist. So, you know, all the writers know each other, but he's obviously the king of breaking NBA news. There's no doubt about it.
Right. So what I was about to say. Oh, so but you full of energy, knowledge of where the games and what's going on. Do you ever get tired of having, I guess, barbershop talk where it's not sort of, you know, man, I just talked about this, I'm tired of hearing about it, or anything like that amongst your friends, or like I said, the barbershop, or you out eating something like that? I'm sure everybody running up to you like, yo, what you think about this? What about that? How do you feel about that? And do you ever get tired And that's just like, for us, we're going to eat and you might just want to have family time with your family and eat a meal. And they like, I don't mean to bother you, but I'm gonna bother you anyway.
Right.
Something. You know what I'm saying? Do you have that when you going out with your family?
Yeah, man. I mean, and we're on TV all the time, so a lot of people know us. It's kind of like y'all. It's not like the superstars, but it's like a lot of average NBA players. People know you, and so there are a lot of times where I want to just go somewhere, and I'll be like hoping don't nobody recognize me. You know what I mean? I'm just here to get my groceries, or I'm just here to do a little shopping, and you don't want people to recognize you. And then, like you said, sometimes you with your family or friends, and people come up, and people do feel like they know you. You know what I mean? Because I guess because you're on TV and you're they see your personality. So they kind of feel like they know you. So people come up and, you'll be cool. Yeah, I'll take a picture. We can do that. And then they want to have this conversation. It's like, look, I'll do the picture, but we ain't cool. I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like, and then I'll tell you this, Pose. And I think, obviously, Skip Bayless probably started it, I guess. And Stephen A, the whole debate thing. Mm-hmm. What I've noticed as that's grown more and more popular, man, everybody got a take now. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody got a take. Right. And it's not like people just want to discuss something now. It's like they got a take. Like, yo, Durant ain't nothing with, because Brooklyn getting all these players, or LeBron's better than Jordan. Like, and everybody wants to prove their point, just average random people,
Right.
And so I think the culture has become infected with this spirit of debate, and look, a lot of this, man, I mean, it's no right, and a lot of it is no right or wrong.
Right.
I mean, LeBron, Jordan, I do think it's Jordan, and I think LeBron is second, but you can't prove either, it's subjective. And then you can throw Kareem and other players in there. So, but everybody, man, people are a lot more spirited in debating that stuff now.
So what is the championship in your profession? Who will be the GOAT, I guess, in your profession, or like an MVP? You know how we have it as, in the NBA. Does that exist in your profession?
Well, they have awards, but they aren't. They're not the equivalent. I mean, you got Pulitzer Prize and stuff like that, but I'm talking about the awards we have aren't really the equivalent of like an NBA championship or an MVP in terms of the recognition. You know what I mean? Like you win awards, but it's not, it's not the hoopla of winning an MVP or being NBA championship. But if you're talking about GOATs, I mean, like I said, I would say the GOAT of breaking new NBA news is Woj. I think that's clear. I think, look, my man is Skip. I'm cool with Stephen A too, but I'm at Fox. So I got to roll with Skip. But Skip and Stephen A. And I got to give Shannon credit, man. Shannon Sharp has been fantastic. Like he doesn't take a backseat to either one of those guys. And I mean, he's, there was people wondered, okay, this is a football player. Is he going to be able to, hold his own with basketball and all that? And Shannon's terrific. So he's definitely up there. But, and you got to look at the pioneers with Mike Wilbon, and Tony Kornheiser. That show, pardon the interruption, was really the first show of this kind. You know what I mean? They didn't really go at it, I don't think, like Skip and Stephen A or anything like that. But they, it's kind of the first, they were the pioneers. But I would say of this debate genre, Skip and Stephen A that'd be an interesting, people could debate that if who's the GOAT between those two, as far as this debate genre,
Right. So do you have a Mount Rushmore of I guess in your perspective, like you said, I mean, you spoke of highly of these guys here, but is there a Mount Rushmore like you have in basketball?
Right.
And it changes all the time. But for you, who would those people be, if any?
I had never thought of that. You got some tough questions, Pose.
Yes.
Like I'm turning this thing around on you. Look, I would say, obviously, you go back, you got Howard Cosell's definitely on there.
Okay.
I'm gonna give you a few definite. He's definitely on there. Stuart Scott is definitely on there. Now I'm mixing up all type, he's an anchor. He obviously Cosell did his thing, and then you got writers, and so it's a lot of different genres in here. But I'm saying Cosell, Stuart Scott, because Stuart Scott changed everything. He changed the game. Like before that, as an African American, you kind of felt like to go on TV, you have to, be a little more, like
professional,
don't slang, hip hop, none of that,
Right.
And if you look, I've often said if there was no Stuart Scott, we might not have had a Charles Barkley. Because it just might not have been that space created for him to be himself. You know what I mean?
Right.
And Stephen A. Smith. And so it was different. So and then now you see people of all races using, whether it's using his lines or just using his style, coming up with all these sayings. So those are two that are definitely up there. I gotta be honest, man. My man Stephen A. Like what he's doing, it's hard not to, he's doing from being a great reporter to now with the television and the debate, but then doing, the NBA show on ESPN, and then the thing with the little baby Stephen A.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's gonna go down as a legend, I think. I'll say this, I think, in my opinion, the best guy on sports talk radio, and this is not because I'm at Fox, but I think Colin Cowherd is tremendous. When it comes to sports talk radio. Now, I think Mike and Mike in the Morning, that was an awesome sports talk radio show. I loved it. But as far as solo, I think Cowherd is tremendous. Jim Rome had a run. He's still on, but he was at the top of the mountain for a while. But and then writers, it's just a lot of guys that, there are a lot of the interesting thing, Pose, there are a lot of great writers that people don't know about because they're not on national TV. Right. You know what I mean? And they're tremendous columnists. And back in the day when it was just newspapers, they were like at the top, but now your average fan doesn't know about them because they didn't go the TV route. So that's unfortunate for a lot of guys, but those are some of the names. Man. It's
that's what's up. Hey,
I kind of spoke around it, but I gave you some names.
Hey, we gonna run with those names too. We appreciate it. Do you have any haters? Do you ever sit back and think yo, this man, he just a flat out just hating on what I do, you know what I'm saying? Because you in your own lane. Do you have any haters like that?
I'm sure I do. I'm not, and look, I'm older. You even didn't grow up on social media, so I don't, honestly, man, I don't pay much attention to, the social media, like what people are saying on Twitter about me and stuff like that, just because I'm not, I use it for work, and you get news and stuff from it, but I'm not really the one to be on there looking at what people are saying and responding and all that. So I call them Twitter muscles. You got guys that have Twitter muscles, but never once have I been out where people was hating on me. I've never been out and had somebody come up like, yo, man, you don't know what you talking about. You horrible. None of that stuff you might see on Twitter. it's when I'm out, it's always, oh, I love you. Can I get a picture? And I know some of the people probably are the haters, you know?
Well, I'm saying, like, say you covering the finals or something, and you're actually there at that event, and you're looking across the room, and then somebody just giving you that look, or they just mad or something because you're doing your thing or whatever. It's like in that room, you come across any haters?
Oh, like other reporters or anything like
Yeah,
that?
other reporters. Yeah, my bad. Yeah, other reporters.
I don't really, but I tell you what, the competition when I was at ESPN, and again, I didn't view it myself as like going at it with Woj a lot, but the competition was fierce, between ESPN and Yahoo. It was pretty fierce. And again, me and Woj, it never got to a point where we weren't cordial,
Right.
but when we first met, we had a very friendly relationship.
Okay.
And then as the competition heated up, again, not so much me individually, but just ESPN before he went to ESPN. Woj just was like, yo, I'm tunnel vision. And so, it wasn't we never, like I said, it was always cordial, but it wasn't the friendliness of that it had been early on because he was in that zone, and right. So but I don't really, I can't think of any enemies in the industry that I really have.
Got you. Okay. What do you think needs to happen or should happen to get more minorities in, what I'm saying, in the league, coaching jobs in the front offices and things like that? What's your view on that?
Yeah, that's a great question because obviously, like, the NBA's done a better job than most leagues, but it's still a long way to go. And it's interesting now because the coaching, I don't know how many Black coaches there are now, but at one point it was at 13. I think that was the high mark out of 30. And then it's gone down to 5 or 6 or 7, so it might be 6 or 7 now. But I think that analytics has really a lot of there are some that feel like that was almost a way to get more whites into the game, because the route used to be not exclusively, but to a large degree, former players would end up being the coaches and the GMs, and that still happens, but it's a lot more you see that never played in the league. There's many that didn't play at any level, even high school level, or certainly not college, right? And a lot of, and I'm telling you, Pose, there are guys that I think don't really know the game. Like, they can't just watch it and tell you who can ball, and you know what I mean? But all they know is the numbers.
Numbers.
And that impresses owners. So if you're in an interview with the owner, and the owner owns corporations, he's used to people bringing him diagrams and numbers, right? And how this gonna work. And so if you sit down and just talk hoop with him, he may not be able to understand. But the guy that can go in there and point to all these analytics and this is why we're not winning because, we don't shoot a certain higher percentage of three, whatever it might be, they can impress the owner. And so, one, I do think, and I've had even executives tell me this, African Americans, that younger guys need to get more into analytics too. Like younger African Americans start looking in that. But I think it has to come down to those African Americans that are in power positions. You don't always have to hire an African American, but looking out for them, giving them chances, interviews, recommending them to other places. And if you see foul play, like if you see one team or one specific individual just will not hire blacks, or, very few, like a ridiculous, he don't hire enough and not being fair, then you need to call it out. You need to speak out, because what happens is the goalpost moves for us. And that's what I'm saying with the analytics. Like, it used to be, you come up through the league and you played or you in a, now it's a different route. And you see it worse in the NFL, where you used to have to go one route, and now they got guys with very little experience in getting head coaching jobs. And so I just think that the blacks in positions of power need to, really look out for other African Americans when they're, and if it gets bad, too bad, then at some point players can wield their power, you know what I mean, and speak out. Like I didn't like, and look, I love Harden. I have no problem with him leaving Houston. I think he's like playing better than anybody in the world right now.
Right now, yeah, he balling.
But I feel for like I hate what's happened to Steven Silas.
Right.
Because he's waited 20 years for this head job, and he's a good coach, and dudes are bailing on him. You know what I mean? And obviously he's going through this horrible season, and so it's tough on him. But yeah, so I just think you got to look out for brothers and do what you can to help guys out when you get in those positions.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like in that situation, I mean, I understand you want to get out. Probably, I thought he should have went about it a different way, a little bit behind closed doors for the most part. Right. But at the end of the day, ball out for him, rock out for him, make him look good. You know what I'm saying? At least make him look good until you leave. You know what I'm saying? And I guess that's the only thing.
I think Harden's mentality initially was, I'm gonna go ball. Y'all told me you working with me. I want out. All right, I'm a ball. And the first 3 games, he was great. I think he had like 44, 33, 34, something like that. And he started seeing, man, they ain't gonna trade me if I can, to keep doing. And I'm not justifying it because you're right, but he dogged it for like 5 games, and then they sat out the 1 game, and that's how he got to do. That's how he got out of there. But yeah, it was a tough situation.
During this pandemic, it's been tough for everybody. How has it been for you? You know what I'm saying? Being, everybody's doing everything virtual, you know what I'm saying, with, Zoom or whatever it may be. How has it been for you?
It's been great, man. Because during the season, I'm usually in LA a lot because a lot of our Fox Sports shows are in Los Angeles. So my house is in Yeah. I miss the weather. I'll tell you that. I do miss the weather out there. But I live in New Jersey. And so now I've been back in Jersey since March of 2020. Right. So it's been great. I got a studio in my house. I do everything from the house, TV, radio. So I love it, man. It's been good, especially once sports came back,
Right.
Until sports came back, it was really tough, especially with a radio show and stuff. But it's been great. I mean, I'm obviously looking forward to getting back to, when we're back
traveling.
Yeah. But it's been good as far as work.
Right, got you.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're the founder and president of the King Movement. Could you fill me in on that?
Yeah, King. It's an acronym that stands for Knowledge, Inspiration, and Nurture through God. And what we really do, we want to empower boys and men to reach their God-given potential. In your family life, your marriage, raising your children, your careers, just we want to help people become what God created them to be. And the group King is for all men, but it's primarily African American, at least at this point. Okay. And so, as you know, we got a lot of challenges in our community, a lot of obstacles in our path. So we try to work with brothers, like a lot of guys now are growing up without fathers, the majority. And so we try to, help brothers like, like I grew up with my dad and I just saw that example every single day. Even it didn't even take him sitting down telling me this is what you do as a father or whatever, husband. I just saw it and you just pick it up, And so a lot of guys growing up, they don't see that. And so we want to, like, that's just one example of something we want to provide, and give advice and get brothers ready for marriage or being a husband, being a father and things like that. Okay. Be mentors. We have mentorship programs where we work with young boys and stuff like that. So that's really what it's about. And we've done a lot of work with ex-athletes. Like every Super Bowl, we do something called the huddle. It's during the NBA season, so we usually have NBA or NFL players, ex-NFL players, talk to kids. But we've had NBA guys as well. So just, you know, we go every Super Bowl, we go to an HBCU. So we did Morehouse in Atlanta. Then 2 years ago in Miami, we did Florida Memorial. And we would have ex-athletes, myself and others, talking to young men, like hundreds of young men, about, like I said, family life, you know, domestic violence, like avoiding that, career development, and faith, and the importance of faith in your life, and things like that. So it's been really positive. It's been really good.
That's great, man. Keep up the great work, man.
Thank you.
Appreciate you always. At the end of the show, I have a segment called Free Game. What free game do you have for people out here?
Free game. So like advice or
whatever information, knowledge you want to share with people out here, but it's free game. You know what I'm saying? Give them, you know, from you. It could be anything, sports related or just anything.
In general. I would just say, I'm gonna say this, Pose. Right now, there's a lot of focus in the African American community on like police brutality, and rightly so, you know, and a lot of even pushing. Like I worked with Ice Cube when he put out his contract with Black America to push for reparations and things like that. So there's a lot of push for that, and that's good, and we should be doing that. But I think we can't lose focus of also looking inside our own community, and looking at some of the destructive things that are going on within ourselves, you know.
Right.
Like when we say Black Lives Matter, which I fully support, obviously, but it's not just Black lives that get killed by police that matter. You know, it's Black lives that got killed by other brothers. You know what I mean? So,
gotcha.
So just as much as we focus on, we can do both. It's not one or the other. And a lot of times when you see on TV pundits talking about African American, our plight, you got those that completely focus on the system and the obstacles that they put in our path. And then you have those that just want to focus on us. Pull up your pants, study hard, and, you know, and no, it's both. It's really a mixture of both. Like we do, as all people, we have things we need to work on ourselves. And then the system also needs to be more fair and just. So I would say, let's not lose focusing on both, and look at the things in our community that need change or need improvement. And we can work on those just like we work on improving the system and our opportunities.
Okay. Appreciate it. There y'all having some free game from Chris Broussard, man. Yo, I appreciate you taking the time out your busy day. You're a busy man, but thank you, man. I appreciate the love you shown. And hey, from the heart, from the land, I appreciate you. Thanks.
Nah, definitely, man. You know, anytime you need me, let me know. And you hit me with some hard questions, so you have definitely adjusted to the media, man. Like
I'm trying.
Yeah, you ain't playing.
I'm listening to you. I'm listening to you for sure.
Nah, great job, man. Anytime you need me, let me know, and we'll get you on the radio show again too.
All right, man. Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, bro. Peace.
All right, peace.